Okay, we're on. All right. Welcome to another class. Parshat Mishpatim. Now, many people, they've paid attention to the beginning of the class, which is very litigious, lawsuits and civil litigation, damages and for theft, and a bunch of different stuff. But the end of the Parsha actually gets pretty interesting. At the end of the Parsha, we have the continuation of the narrative of the giving of the Torah, which is what we're going to be discussing today, God willing. Okay.
Mishpatim is families?
No. That's Mishpachas families. Mishpatim are laws.
Mishpatim
Are laws.
are laws.
Yeah. All right. So, since this week is Super Bowl Sunday, so there are two types of people. Thank you. There are people who care, and there are people who don't care. Now, for the people that care, they get excited. There's the whole culture phenomenon. The party and get together, and there's a game, and it's two good teams. It's a good game. But for the person who doesn't care, I mean, if you like the commercials, maybe. But
There's still a party, there's still food, there's still alcohol.
there you go. So the question is, for the person who doesn't care, and let's say you're a person that cares, what do you got to tell the other person to get them to care more? I mean, I chose the Super Bowl, but it could be any. Yeah.
We're gonna have an open bar.
Right? Or what would it take to convince a person? Because put it this way: if let's say
There has to be something else, not that particular topic.
no, but they can't change the subject. So let's take out the Super Bowl because there's too much stuff going around it. So everybody knows
The commercials are good.
commercials are good, right? So I'm from Brooklyn. I grew up, in a family of sports. I grew up with the Yankees and the Jets, and right. So I grew up in liking sports. My wife is Argentinian, so her family also likes sports, but they like soccer and a little bit of tennis, and baseball to her is absolute torture. So if I say, "Come, Cyril, I got box seats, right behind the dugout. The Yankees against, I don't know, pick out another game with two good teams. Come, let's go out for a game," and she would be like, "Dude. What would it take for a person who doesn't care about baseball, for example, whatever it is, right, to care, to get more excited about the experience?" Nope.
Oh, have more shapely women on the team.
That was it. Now you work for the Dallas Cowboys.
I don't know.
So that, no, come on. Okay, let's flip it around. Why do people care about the Super Bowl?
I have no freaking idea.
No, forget about or any championship. No,
Well, I think they like the
Competition.
the competition, but everything that goes
so
around.
forget the Super Bowl. Okay, why do people care about any game, for example?
Well, it's
They
competition.
relate to the team as being a something that they can feel a part of.
Right. Put this on. But it's not. They don't just show up. They don't just show up and go to the game. They know exactly what's going on.
They know that their participation in the encouragement of the team
Right.
by cheering makes the team play better.
Right, like
so
I-
they have an input to the final results. They have an effect
Well-
on the final results.
Scientific. I mean, they've done studies that players do play better. I mean, COVID was a great example when players were playing in front of empty stadiums. Some players liked it. Some players hated it. But the point is, the fans of whatever topic it is, it could be art in a museum, it could be a movie, they're invested in it. Meaning they know about it. They don't just show up to the game. They know how the team is doing. They know the standings. They know who's injured. They know what it takes to go to the playoffs. The reason why people are excited about the Super Bowl who know about the game, because it's hard. It's very hard to get to the championship. whatever sport. It's very hard. It's 6 months of playing and months of preparation, and all these things have to go right. So for me, well, I don't appreciate art. No, I can't draw a straight line. But if you tell me the difference, this piece of art is worth $100,000, and this piece of art is worth $50 million. I mean, to me,
And this piece of art is worth 12 cents.
it's like, to me, yeah, they're both incredible because I don't know. So yeah, do I like going to a museum to see the nice art? But if some people stand there, you go to the museums, they stand there and they look at the piece of art and they're studying the brush strokes and everything else. Yeah.
Look at blank canvases and they are being convinced that it's the white cat in the snowstorm and they'll buy it.
The emperor's the clothing, right? But so the point we're driving at is it takes preparation and it takes investment of time
Shut your phone off.
and energy.
Shut up.
If without that, nothing matters. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that there's an appreciation of the work, effort, skill to get to that point in time.
Yeah, so if you don't follow football the entire year, or if you don't follow football, let's say at all, so it's not a big deal, right? But if you, let's say, follow football, or let's say, for example, I'm a Jets fan. Woe to me, right? The Jets haven't been in the championship game since 1969. And they came close once, like 15 years ago, maybe. So, I'm not going to lie to you that if the Jets were in the Super Bowl, yeah, I'd be excited. Why? Because I've been watching the Jets since can't even remember, right? And they've always been bad. And all of a sudden now, I mean, when the Yankees are playing,
They weren't always bad.
yeah, exactly.
What do you want with a quarterback
Okay.
that advertises pantyhose?
Exactly.
You know?
So I remember, you guys.
Joe Namath was a pretty darn good quarterback
Yeah.
for the Jets.
Listen, you come
Even
late.
though I'm not a Jets fan.
Listen, you come late, Ira. Sit down. When I was, when I was a teenager, I was loco about sports. When the Yankees were playing in the World Series, all the World Series in the '90s, I mean, I would totally lose it. Home run, I would absolutely go berserk. Why? Because you follow. The point is that when you're invested in something, in time and energy, then it means something to you. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
it's like the Super Bowl that's coming up. Well, I
Thank you.
don't have a dog in the fight. I watch it, but
There's dogs. They
but
fight.
but even if you don't
Rays.
but even if you don't go for Kansas City or
San Francisco.
San Francisco, the fact that you watch football the whole year, yeah, it's interesting to you, right? Okay. So let's bring the Super Bowl. Let's bring the Super Bowl home a little bit. It's not cold, but you can take water. Yeah.
There's a few ice cubes left in the freezer. I got some here.
So
too.
one of the biggest problems that we have as people who serve God, who go through the various observances throughout the year is we fall into the trap of just going through the motions. We just do it because that's what you do. It comes in all day. You put on tefillin. It comes Shabbos. You make kiddush. It's not a big deal. And kind of we feel bad because we know that's not the way you're supposed to be doing a mitzvah. God commands you to do a mitzvah. You're supposed to be excited about it. So the question that we're going to address is how to overcome that blah, the rut. Now you might say, God doesn't really care about how you do it or why you do it. God is an executive. He just wants it done. Like if my employee comes to work and she doesn't want to come to work, I don't care. If you want to, just come to work. And whether you want to go home, I don't care. Just work. So maybe God is that kind of employer. He just wants us to work. But we see in text 1a, in the prophet of Isaiah, says that Hashem laments to Yeshaya, and he passes on the message to the Jewish people, that the people, they go through the motions. There's no meaning, there's no heart in it. Look at text number 1. And God said, because these people approach me with their mouth and with their lips, they honor me, but their heart, they're far away. And fear of me has become a social obligation. Learn learn by rote. You see text 1b, the Metzudas David. Metzudas David is a commentary. Abba, have you heard this woman you listened to the class mention the Metzudas David? Metzudat David? He's a famous commentary on the prophets. She doesn't mention him by name.
No.
She definitely mentions it because he's one of the most famous commentators. And he explains, text 1b, for the people approach me, they draw near to me with the words, but they don't speak from the heart. They distance their heart from me. They're kind of going through the motions. And King David blasts people, the same thing, text 2a in chapter 78, this is on page 87. And he says, they deceived him with their speech, and they lied to him with their words. Their heart was inconsistent toward him, and they were untrue to his covenant. And you see in text 2b, the Metzudas David, again, that they try to flatter God. And with their mouth, and they try to deceive him with their tongues. But the heart's not in it. So this is a very, very old problem. This is not a new problem. Many times, you might have heard me say this, many times we think we're the most miserable generation ever. I mean, we're pretty bad. But we're not, this problem of just going through the emotions, going through it by rote, is an old problem. You see, King David wrote about it. Prophet Isaiah wrote about it. The question becomes, how do we insert more significance into the mitzvot we do? Okay, so before we get to that, we're going to totally seemingly jump to another topic. So as I started off, this week's Torah portion continues a narrative of the giving of the Torah. So last week's Parsha is Parshat Yisro. So the giving of the Torah spans two chapters here, 19 and 20. Beginning in 19, with the class we gave last week, that he came in the third month and he camped around the mountain, right? That was last week's class. Then in chapter 20 we had the 10 Commandments. I think it's the sixth reading or the seventh reading of this week's Parshat Mishpatim, which is chapter 24. It starts a whole new narrative. So if you look, because you look at Parshat Yisro, the giving of the Torah was given on the 6th of Nisan. So last week it tells us what happened on day 1 of the month of Sivan, day 2 of Sivan, day 3 of Sivan. Yeah, but day 4 and 5 it doesn't say. Day 4 and 5 are this week's Parsha. So you see, it says over here, text number 3, Moshe went up to God, and Hashem told to Moshe, you come up on the mountain, and you, Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu are Aaron's 2 older sons and the 70 elders. And he goes through the whole thing, and Moshe came and he told the people what they said, and they said the famous words, everything that God said we will do. And then Moshe wrote down everything. Now, the problem with this set of verses is the sequence of events, because it says in verse number 4, right? Verse number 4, the last couple lines of text 3, it says Moshe wrote down all the words of God. What did Moshe write down? Not the 10 Commandments; they weren't given yet. What did he write down? So it's a good question, right?
Yeah.
So this leads into a massive argument between. It's interesting how it's split up along party lines between Sephardic rabbis and Ashkenazic rabbis, between Dems and Republicans. Exactly, is this chapter 24 in this week's Torah portion? Did this take place after the giving of the Torah or before? Now you might say, well, it's chapter 24 and the giving of the Torah is in chapter 20. Obviously, it happened after.
Not necessarily.
Well, not necessarily is correct, Larry, because there's a rule. One of the greatest rules of the Torah, that anyone who studies it, the Torah does not go in sequence. Does not go in chronological order. Does not go in sequence. Therefore, just because something appears later doesn't mean it didn't happen earlier. One of the biggest problems of biblical scholars, they don't know this rule because they don't ask, because they're scholars, they think they know better. They say, oh, the Torah obviously was written by multiple people because things appear out of order. And so the Sephardic rabbis from Spain, but Sfard means Spain. I was having an argument with this guy. His family's Turkish. Well, he's American, but his grandfather, he's trying to tell me he's Sephardic. I said, you're not Sephardic. You're Turkish. It's not the same thing. It's the same thing. I said, no. It's not the same thing. I mean, are you closer to Sfard than you are to Ashkenaz? Yeah. But you're not Sfard. For example, you go to the Yemenites and you call them Sephardi, they get very upset. We're not Sephardi. We're Yemenites. Anyway, but side topic there. So the Dan Isaac of Barbanel, you know who Dan Isaac of Barbanel was?
We hear or read, I should say, his interpretations in some publications. They attribute it to Barbanel.
Yes, so Barbanel wrote on the Mishnayos and he also wrote on the Torah. He was the treasurer of King Ferdinand in 1492. He was the treasurer, King Ferdinand, and
he helped Columbus get a Jewish navigator.
I don't know.
Could be.
Maybe. So the expulsion from Spain was supposed to be in 1391. He got it because the decree was really originally passed in 1391 for the expulsion. I forgot which rabbi, the Sephardic rabbi, got a 100-year stay, and he thought in 100 years, hopefully things will change. Fortunately, it didn't. 100 years later, the treasurer, one of the leading rabbis of Spain, was Dan Isaac Barbanel, and he got a 1 year. But then there was too much pressure on the church, on King Ferdinand, and also didn't help that he had a witch for a wife, King Isabella.
Isabella was a witch.
Oh yeah, so she also drove it. Anyway, so he offered Dan Isaac to stay. So he said, "I'm not going to stay. There's no Jewish community." He said, "Okay, I'll let you have 10 Jews here, and you can be religious, minyan, everything." So Barbanel said, "I'm not going to stay here. My whole Jewish community is being expelled, and I'm going to live here." So he went to Italy, and in Italy, he heard about him because he was a good accountant. So he was hired there as a treasurer too. Hired. I mean, in those days when the king said, "You're my treasurer,"
You were the treasurer.
there was no.
Oh, he was hired.
Yeah.
He just didn't apply for the job.
Right. Yeah. The choices are yes or dead. Right. But the end of his
pay was lousy.
Yeah, no, actually the player was pretty good. So at the end of his life, he said everyone chases after all these things, but the money doesn't do you any good. Anyway, so he writes. I know we went off on a tangent over there. So he writes on text number 4. He says that the sages of France, which are the Ashkenazic rabbis, France is the original Ashkenazic community. It's called Franco-German Jews, France, Germany. So the French rabbis, they say chapter 24, which tells about day 4 and 5. According to the Ashkenazic rabbis, it tells the story of day 4 and 5, which means the giving of the Torah, which remember was on day 6 of Sivan. And according to the Sephardic community, it happened afterward. Now the problem, I don't want to knock on Sephardic rabbis. It might seem that I'm against them. The problem is the text seems to indicate it happened before. It strongly indicates it happened before. Anyway, so Rashi says, and text 5a, and to Moshe it said. So this portion happened prior to the 10 Commandments, and Moshe was told in the 4th of Sivan to ascend. So according to the Sephardic rabbis who say that this story in chapter 24 happened after the giving of the Torah, so when God tells Moshe to write down the laws, makes sense, plenty of laws. But according to Ashkenazic rabbis who say it happened before the giving of the Torah, what did Moshe write down? Recipes? Yeah, you follow the question? Have another regular. You're good? No, you're good. You're good. So Rashi anticipates that question. That's why Rashi is Rashi, and he says that humanity had law before the giving of the Torah. What law did they have? No? 7 Noahide laws. That's what Rashi says. There's 7 Noahide laws, and also we know they were commanded about Shabbos. How do we know? No, for an extra regular, who couldn't tell me where they're commanded about Shabbos? I'll give you a hint. We read about it 2 weeks ago.
I was sleeping.
I was gonna say, I slept since then.
Doesn't anybody pay attention when we read the Torah?
I think I was late.
You were reading it in some language that I am not totally conversant in.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
When,
You
when
go
Hashem,
so fast I can't read the translation.
when Hashem gives the man, what does he tell them? 6 days collect, and
And then the
And
seventh
on-
day, you rest.
7 days don't collecting. So they're already commanded about Shabbos. And they're already commanded about honoring their parents and also the red cow. So Rashi says in text 5b that what Moshe wrote was those laws. Now, additionally, and now we're going to get into a whole nother argument. How was the Torah written? Now we have 5 books of Moshe, right? There's a famous argument.
What do you mean by how?
In piecemeal or at once.
Oh, I see. Oh.
So Rashi says in 5c.
The only thing I don't understand right here is the reference to the red heifer. Where did that come in at that point?
Because they needed the laws of purity and impurity. They were going to be purify themselves. But if Moshe told them, we read in last week's Parshat, to purify themselves. So generally
They
speaking,
referred to it, but they didn't specify it.
well, they had, I don't know if they didn't do a red heifer then. They didn't do a red heifer then, but they had to go to the mikveh. And there was, on day 5, there was a purification ceremony. But it wasn't applicable before the giving of the Torah, but there was. That is the prototypical illogical law, the law that is super rational. Now, why God chose that one out of all that? So according to Rashi, the Torah was written in pieces. God dictated to Moshe at certain times, okay, now write. So we see in text 5c that Hashem told Moshe at Sinai, write from Genesis. Not Moshe didn't know the words. Hashem told him, okay, now write Bereshis, Bara, Lakim, Lakim. He went from Genesis until the giving of the Torah. And then later on, as time went on, like, it was like J.K. Rowling, a new book came out, right? Oh my God, everyone's lining up, to get God's new book, right? And then later on, at the end of 40 years, all those sections came together to make
The 5 books.
the five books of Moses. That's what you see in text 6a, the argument between
Yochanan ben Zakkai?
Yochanan ben Zakkai. Yochanan ben Zakkai. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, said the Torah was given in sections. According to Rish Lakish, he says no. Rish Lakish was Rabbi Yochanan's colleague, his brother-in-law also. See, not all brother-in-laws get along. I'm kidding. These two actually loved each other. When Rish Lakish, no, really, when Rish
Is that a
Lakish,
reflection on you? And
yeah, when Rish Lakish died, Rish Lakish was a little older than Rabbi Yochanan, and he was first Rish Lakish was his student, and then he became his colleague, and they went at it, not in a bad way, in a good way.
Yeah.
Rabbi Yochanan would give 24 reasons why this one, or Rish Lakish would give 24 reasons the other way. When Rish Lakish died, Rabbi Yochanan had no study partner. They brought another guy in. The other guy was like, Rabbi Yochanan, whatever Rabbi Yochanan says is right. Is that what he's told to tell me why I'm right? And he told tell me I'm wrong. Right? And he died of sorrow. Some people say he went crazy because he couldn't take it. He lost his part. Yeah. All right. So you find all over the Gemara and the Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish argue. Rabbi Yochanan says day, Rish Lakish says night. So Rish Lakish says no, the Torah was given as one thing. And he brings a verse. Moshe tells the Jewish people, take this book. It doesn't say books. Book. So now Rashi comes and explains. Rashi also wrote the commentary on the Talmud. So Rashi comes and explains 6b. How do we make sense? So he says, this is text 6b on page 91 and 92. The Torah is given section by section. When a portion was spoken to Moses, he wrote it down. At the end of the 40 years, he compiled it, connected them together, sealed them. That's what we have. According to Rish Lakish, no, everything was oral. Everything was oral, and then at the end of 40 years, Moshe wrote everything down. Now,
That would mean that Moshe had a photographic memory,
Oh,
so to speak.
Moshe, not so to speak. Not so to speak. Moshe had. Yeah, Moshe was.
Photograph.
You think it's that hard to memorize it there? Not that hard.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time.
It's not that hard. Imagine because
Yeah, Moses.
you're distracted by everything else. Imagine you're in the desert. You have nothing else to do.
No Facebook.
No Facebook.
No Facebook. I
It's not.
hardly look at Facebook.
It's not. It's not tremendously. I mean, it takes a long time. There are people who know the whole Tanakh by heart. Torah is. I mean, you hear it every Shabbos. You read it every week. You read it a couple times a week. If you read Chumash, if you read the daily Chumash every day, which you're supposed to, and you review the Parsha before Shabbos, that's a mitzvah to review the Parsha. In case you get called up, then you read it. I mean, and you learn it every day. I mean, that's all they did. So, but that doesn't prove that Moshe has photographic memory. There are a bunch of other stuff that prove.
Okay.
Yeah, Moshe. Yeah, no one's going toe to toe with Moshe. I mean, as brains wise. I mean, the man learned from the boss.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole argument, a debate. It's very interesting books here that hardly anyone takes off the shelf. But one of the 13 principles of faith, since you went off the subject, one of the 13 principles of faith is God gave the entire Torah to Moshe, right? There's never going to be a new law, which goes against some of the religions who say, one law has been rejected and now there's a new law. So no, God gave the entire Torah to Moshe, and everything that seems new, it's not new. God gave it to Moshe. The question is, when God gave the entire Torah to Moshe, was that like seminal points, or did Moshe learn the entirety of everything? So some people say it's impossible for Moshe to learn everything. He's not just a person. And even though, yes, he achieved partial angelic status, he didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't drink for 40 days, but still, he still had the limitation of human capacity. Another rabbi said, no. Moshe was on a different tier. He learned everything openly, everything that every rabbi was future to say, he got it. He knew it, open. Not just like, because we say on page 25 of the Siddur, the 13 principles and how to extrapolate and interpret law. Mm-hmm. Those are just formulas. So did God give Moshe the formula, or did he give him everything?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So some rabbis say it's impossible for Moshe to learn everything. It's just not possible. So that's for a regular person. Moshe wasn't a regular person. So I mean, yeah, I think everyone. All right. So now according to Rish Lakish, who says that the Torah was only written down at the end of the 40 years, because remember, there's an argument. One rabbi said it was written piecemeal. So according to that rabbi, the fact that Moshe wrote down some law, okay, no problem. But according to Rish Lakish, the second opinion, who says that the Torah was only written down at the end of 40 years, and for the interim, it was all oral. It's what it says in the verse over here. Hello. It says in the verse over here that Moshe wrote down the law. What did he write down? Yeah? How do you draw it? So text number 7. So Taisvis on the Gemara, he says that the Torah was given complete and sealed. How could this be? So Rashi explains in the commentary, this means from Genesis until the point. That means when Moshe, so according to Taisvis, Moshe wrote down the Torah in 2 stages. One from Genesis until the giving of the Torah at Sinai, and then there was no additions until the end of the 40 years. The Rashba of Shlomo ben Aderet, so he says something very, very interesting. Look at text number 8. He says, no, Moshe only wrote down the things that were necessary for people to learn. Because people needed to learn Torah, and they needed some text. So he only wrote it down. Even according to Rish Lakish, he says, text number 8, even according to Rish Lakish, he only meant that Moses did not write down every portion as is spoken to him. Rather, he orally transmitted it in order until the completion of the Torah. But still, those sections that were necessary at the time, for whatever reason, were written down that could be seen and learned from the written text. So Moshe recognized the importance of writing down certain things. It wasn't the Torah. It was bits and pieces. Yeah.
The tabernacle was carried with them through the desert.
Yes, ma'am.
There were some laws that were given that are only to be done in the temple, when the temple was built. Were they also applicable to the tabernacle?
Yes. The only difference are our laws only in the Beis Hamikdash. I mean, there are laws different in how it's built. Trying to think back then. No, I don't think there's a difference. I mean, the difference is that
So what I'm asking is, the laws that pertain to the Holy Temple also pertain to the tabernacle. They may have had differences in how they performed or completed the instructions that the laws were written about.
listen,
But there may have been,
you learn Leviticus. It's quite complicated. I mean, there's
I know all 28 sections.
yeah. There you go. I can't say that word without you coming and saying the same thing. There's different circumstances for different occasions. I mean, different sacrifices for different occasions, and depending on the financial abilities of the person, right? So you have it gets quite complicated. But again, a lot of these laws, not everybody had to know.
That's what I'm getting
The
at.
Kohen and the Levi had to know.
Were there laws there that could not have been followed until the temple was built?
I don't think so. I think everything was the same. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any service that was different in the temple. I mean, no, there were things that were. What? Which card? It's in my car. Yeah. Okay. So there were things that were done. There were things that were done in the temple that were no longer done in society. Like, for example, the shofar was blown only in the temple, not outside. The lulav was blown only in the temple, not outside. But that started later. I can't think of anything.
So essentially, all the laws were written down were applicable at the time.
No. I can't. You said temple. There were laws for the land of Israel that wasn't applicable in the desert.
Okay.
All the agricultural laws weren't applicable.
Okay, so
And also, there's also laws about the cities of refuge that also didn't apply
okay, but those were written down at that time.
at the end of the 40 years.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, at the end of the 40 years, it made sense because they're about to go into the land of
they
Israel.
were about to. So
But according to Rabbi Yochanan, they were written down before. I mean, we don't know exactly when those laws were written down.
but they were there before they crossed that river.
Oh, yeah. Before the Rebbe, when Moshe died, before Moshe dies, he gives the Jewish people signed, sealed, and delivered, everything. And he teaches it to them in multiple languages, and as a whole, if you look at Parshas Nitzavim, yeah, I think it's Nitzavim. Or the whole covenant they have to go through when they cross, and then you look in the book of Joshua, you're learning when they cross the Jericho River, right? They take the stones, and they have to go to Mount Gerizim, Mount Abel. Yeah, the covenant is yeah. So the Maharal, Rabbi Yehuda Lowy of Prague, comes up with an interesting idea. He says there's two different things. There's a Sefer. Now we only have one thing. It's called the Sefer Torah. But before there was a Sefer Torah, there was something called Sefer Habris.
Sefer what?
Habris.
Habris.
The book. Covenant. The book of the covenant. It's not a Torah scroll. It had segments of the Torah that were important for the Jewish people. Important for the Jewish people to know. You might say, hey, how you do that? There's nothing wrong. Are you not allowed to write down ideas or things you need to learn? In fact, there's a law, there's a ceremony. I don't want to say ceremony because it sounds nice, but there's a process. In the book of Numbers, there's the whole process of if a woman is suspected of cheating, being adulterous, and they bring that woman to the temple, right? And then they have to write this portion on a scroll, on a piece of parchment. And then when the ink dries, they scratch off the ink into water, and then she drinks the water. And if she's guilty, her and her lover die. If she's innocent, then
She just gets an upset stomach.
No, she's innocent. No, she's innocent, and then she's healed of all things. And she has babies that are gonna be painless and healthy, and she's blessed. So in that case, you have to write down a portion of the Torah. Nothing wrong with writing down only a part of the Torah. So Maharal seems to echo this idea that the Rashba says. In text number 9, he says like this. Let's read text number 9. Why is my brother's call me? No, my brother never calls me. Why does he have to call me in the middle of the class? I don't know.
He doesn't have your schedule.
Nah. So you see on the screen, the Maharal says the Book of the Covenant was an independent mitzvah to document certain precepts for the purpose of strengthening the bond between people and God. There are certain things that the Jewish people had to know and had to read about. So there are portions in the Torah that are very legal, and there are portions in the Torah that speak about the special bond between God and the Jewish people. And sometimes we forget about this kind of stuff. So when you read about it, it's nice. It's nice, right? I mean, you read that God took us out of Egypt, and and like Moses says, I mean, a lot of the fantastic things are in Deuteronomy. Where Moses says in the beginning have you ever heard of something? That a nation was taken amongst another nation, was plucked out from among another nation with miracles and wonders. Have you ever seen a nation that has experienced communication from God and lived to tell about it? Have you ever think about it? Reflect upon it. So the connection between you and God is not just, it's something special. So Moshe understood that the Jewish people needed this reinforcement. So he wrote down these, I don't know if exactly the same, but a similarity popped into my head. So I just want to say that the similarity I'm making now is entirely mine. So if it's wrong, I get all the blame. And if it's right, I get all the credit too. You ever heard of Ein Yaakov? The book Ein Yaakov?
No.
So a lot of people who study Gemara, who want to study Gemara, there's two parts to the Gemara. There's the very analytical and stretches your mind, and for some people that never learned Gemara, it's very hard. Didn't get a yeshiva education. The Gemara is not a book you just walk into. There's a style. You have to understand the way it works, so to speak. You can't just walk into Gemara. Remember that joke I told you about the Gentile wanted to learn Gemara? Remember that joke?
Not offhand.
What the Gentile goes to the Jew, said, I want to learn Gemara. He said, you can't learn Gemara. Why? Because you're a guy. So, says, you guys don't know how to learn Gemara. So, what do you mean? You guys, so I'll ask you a question. Two guys come down a chimney. Which one washes their face?
Yeah, I remember.
Right. Remember that? Which one washes their face? He says, the dirty one. He said, no. The dirty one looks at the clean one, and he thinks he's clean. The clean one looks at the dirty one, thinks he's dirty, so washes his face. So, okay, let's go. Give me another chance. Okay, I'll give you another chance. Two guys come down the chimney. Which one washes their face? So you just told me. The clean one. I said, no. The clean one washes his face, he sees the dirty one. The dirty one sees the clean one washing his face. So he thinks he's dirty too. So he washes his face. Says, okay.
Hey, Joe,
Give me.
how are you?
Give me another chance. So he said, okay, two guys come down the chimney. Which one washes their face? So you told me both of them. So no, not necessarily. Maybe the dirty one looks at the clean one, thinks he's clean, doesn't wash his face, and the clean one looks at the dirty one, not washing his face, so he thinks he's clean too, he doesn't wash his face. So wow, okay. One more chance. Two guys come down the chimney. Which one wants to face? So both. She said, what? He says, so one's clean, one's dirty. So how can be one clean, one's dirty? What does that mean? Two guys come down the chimney. How can one be clean and one be dirty? They're obviously both dirty. What kind of? She said, you can't learn more. So the point is, so there's another section. So one person, I forgot who it is, went and took out the mentally taxing part of the Gemara, because there's a lot of nice ideas in the Gemara also, stories, and it's called agada, and agadic. So people for generations, who weren't scholars, who never got the privilege of a Jewish education, because in the olden days, by the way, you went to cheder until you're 7, 8, 10 years old, right? If you're a regular kid, that's it. That was the end of your Jewish education. And then you went to help your father in the field. If you were a genius, then the rabbi would say, okay, you're a genius, then go, you learn with the rabbi, and you were lucky, you married a rich girl, and you were able to study more. But no, I know you guys are laughing, but this is the way it was. If you're a genius par excellence, you married a rich girl, and you sat and learned the rest of your life. If you were not such a genius, whatever, you brokered it out, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was. By the way, the Rambam, what do you think he did? He learned the whole day. His brother, David, supported him. Why did Rambam become a doctor? Because David died in a shipping accident. His ship went down, so his whole source of income. That's why he became a doctor. It's like he was... how did he know how to practice medicine? From the Torah, he knew. Which is a whole... Rambam's on another level also, by the way. That's why there's an adage from Moses to Moses, no one got up like Moses. And that adage is accepted as standard. No one has challenged that adage. So Rambam's on another level, by the way.
Okay, so we're talking about laws. The law, the rule, or the thing on Yom Kippur that you're not supposed to wear leather.
Not supposed to. Not allowed to.
Not allowed to.
Yeah,
Okay.
we gotta start moving.
How did they do? So in modern times, we've got rubber, we've got vinyl, we got all of the
So
kinds of things.
your question is, how do you get to leather?
How did
Because
they,
the verse said, okay, this is totally off the subject, and I'll answer your question.
It was a law.
No, there is a law, but you can ask me questions about a million laws, how they got from point A to point B.
Okay.
So thankfully you asked me a question I actually know the answer to.
Oh,
So that's why I'm not allowing another question, because just in case, So I was studying the encyclopedia, why? Yom Kippur, that's why I know, otherwise. So the answer is because it says in the Torah, you should afflict yourselves. What does affliction mean? So lack of comfort. So in the olden days, comfort was a leather sole. Uncomfortable was a wooden sole.
Ah, okay.
So leather sole and not eating was these days it's
Got it.
yeah, but it's, okay.
Move on.
Yeah, let's move
They
on.
went to Holland to get their shoes.
Exactly. Okay, so the Maharal writes in text number 9. I mean, Joe, maybe you want to come sit over here so you can see the text behind you. Okay, come sit next to the teacher. In the old days, did your teachers do this?
Rabbi Zed Zazinta.
He used to do this?
He would-
Yeah.
He would pick the nose.
Oh, really? Oh, that. See, when I was spacing when I was in 4th grade, and if you were spacing out, my teacher would go, no. That was such things you don't forget. So he said like this. According to the opinion that maintains that the Torah was given complete and sealed, that is limited to a Torah scroll as a whole, over here it wasn't a Torah. This was the Jewish people were given independent parts for the Book of the Covenant. It's a think about it. He continues. Let's go next. Think about it. Would our allegiance to the notion that the Torah is given complete and sealed hold us back from writing out a Torah scroll for Sota? Of course not. This is an independent mitzvah. So Moshe felt, this is nothing to do with Torah, Moshe felt that there were parts that had to be written down in order to strengthen our connection. Now, why? Because what is the purpose of a bris? What does a bris mean? Not a bris milah. Bris is a covenant. The purpose of a covenant means when we love each other and we're all on good terms, then you don't need the covenant. The whole purpose of the covenant is when you're not on good terms. When you have a feeling, something, I want out. By the way, what's the whole purpose of getting married? Why go through the whole thing of getting married? The whole ceremony. Forget the expense, right? The whole idea of one of the ideas of the ceremony is that I'm invested in it, and it's a covenant. It's greater, and also I don't want to embarrass my parents in front of my friends, right? In front of their friends. But the idea is that you're invested in it, and even if one day there's a bad day, whatever it is, I'm not just going to walk out. It's not a business range, or a friendship. Okay, you go your way, I'll go my way. There's more to it. Look what the Rebbe said. Explains what a covenant is. This is text number 10. The idea of a treaty is to fortify the connection between the bond between two parties, entering into a treaty, which in our case, God and the Jewish people. Through the Torah, the God-given Torah, we were able to connect with God. As such, in light of Rashi's opinion, the treaty was given before Torah. The covenant was regarding whatever God had instructed the Jewish people beforehand. So the connection is there, right? And in order to make that connection even stronger, so what do? You have a ceremony, and so let's say, for example, a person is born a Jew, and let's say he doesn't have a bris. Is he a less Jew? No, not less.
He's got something to look forward to.
Exactly. Finds out. I saw. Did I share it on the community chat? Someone made a great clip of a guy, Abraham. He comes in. I just spoke to God. He's like, oh no. He's like, what did God tell you? Did he tell you to kill me? No, he didn't tell me to kill you this time. Is it about me? Yes, it's about you, Isaac. What does he want me? What does he want me to do? So why does all these things always have to happen to me? Why doesn't God ever tell you to do it to you? No, I did it to me also. It's very, it's very, very funny.
So that's the reason all of this.
Right, exactly.
My name is Yitzchak.
So what the Rebbe.
Did you want one?
What the Rebbe says something here is that the covenant was a preparation for the giving of the Torah. It means you can't just walk in. You can't just walk into the giving of the Torah. We know, why were there 49 days from the Exodus to the giving of the Torah? It wasn't just because the Jewish people needed time to walk from Egypt to Sinai, and they needed to cross a body of water. Which, by the way, according to many opinions, they did not need to cross. You ever heard that opinion? The Jewish people didn't cross the sea. They
curved. They came out on the same
They
side.
came out on the same side. The whole purpose was just to punish the Egyptians and to get their gold and stuff. You ever heard that opinion? Mm-hmm. There's a whole opinion of.
Well, if you look at the map that's in the Chumash, it just shows that they crossed a bay from the 2 points where the levees would have been.
Okay, so again, there's a whole discussion. But the point is, I mean, the reason why it took that long was because when God's going to communicate with you, you need to prepare. That's not just. So the covenant, Moshe wrote down these ideas of the covenant, the ideas of a connection between a Jew and God. That's to prepare them in order to appreciate the giving of the Torah. So let's get back to our original discussion, right? Let's say, for example, I had tickets to the Super Bowl, right? Sure. And I could take anyone with me. You know the old joke. This guy goes to the Super Bowl and he sees right up at a 50-yard line. 50-yard line is an older gentleman and there's an empty seat. He's like, it's a Super Bowl. How could it? He goes to the guy. He says, "Excuse me, whose seat is this?" He says, "It was my wife's." So he said, ever since Super Bowl I, we've been coming to the Super Bowl together, and she died. So he said, "I'm so sorry. You couldn't find anyone to come with you to the games." I don't know. They're all at the funeral. Right. Right, so see, meaning.
I'll take the money.
Exactly. So the idea is, who are you going to give the ticket to? Or if, let's say, for example, it went to someone said, "I'm going to take you to the Super Bowl," or "I'll take you to something." So you don't just walk in. Otherwise, it's not going to mean anything to you. So in order for it to mean something to you, you got to prepare. Right? You have to follow. Like for example, some years ago, I'm sorry about this. There was a World Series between Chicago Cubs and the Cleveland Indians, and everybody was making a big deal. Why? Because the Cubs haven't won in a long time. The Indians haven't won in a long time, and it was great anticipation. Who's gonna? Now Detroit almost made it, and they hadn't won since 1957. to the Super Bowl, right? You know, or sorry, I'm making everyone, I'm rubbing everyone the wrong way, right? Say the point is when you know about it and you're invested in it and you understand, then the event has something. It means something to you. So, you know, there's a custom, a chassidim, that when you wake up in the morning, you learn Torah before davening. Why? Because what's the purpose of davening? Prayer. You're talking to God. You wake up in the morning, you know, you had your coffee, you didn't have your coffee, but your mind's not straight. You're going to go talk to God. Who are you talking to? You say you should love God, you know, with all your heart. You don't even know who He is. I mean, you have to prepare. That's the way it is. When you're invested and you're prepared, then it means something to you. And this is what a little known commentator says. This is text number 11, Poilei Eliezer. And he says like this: it's necessary to prepare one's mind before performing any mitzvah. And because that's why, that's the purpose. According to some commentaries, that's why we make a bracha before we do a mitzvah, because to get us in the right frame of mind. Why do we make a bracha before we eat? To remember that God gave us the food. Because you don't just do anything. You know, there's even an opinion. It's not the accepted opinion that you can make a bracha on the preparation of the mitzvah. So you see text number 13. There's an argument between the Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi, the Babylonian Talmud, and the Jerusalem Talmud. According to the Babylonian Talmud, you only make a blessing on the mitzvah. You don't make a blessing on building the sukkah. You make a blessing on sitting in the sukkah. You don't make a blessing on putting together the lulav.
You shouldn't take that as a commentary on your.
Exactly. You make a blessing on the lulav itself. But the Jerusalem Talmud, see text 13 says that you can actually make a blessing on building the sukkah, because when I invite you guys next year to help me build the sukkah. I'm looking at you.
I'm
Right.
sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, your hearing is.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So if you come to build the sukkah,
Battery is low.
you'll understand, right? There's a lot of schwitz and work and labor. You know, you should know my elbow is still hurting me from them. It's a lot of work. But when you sit inside the sukkah, I'm not regretting it, but you sit inside the sukkah and it's a nice big sukkah and it's air conditioned and everything else. It feels good. I'm not gonna lie to you. It feels good to be inside the sukkah when you invest something in it. You know, some people come and say, Rabbi, you let her have such a nice sukkah. I'm like, what's this idea that in Judaism you have to suffer? You're not allowed to enjoy yourself. So, but according to the Jerusalem Talmud, you make a bracha. And this idea of preparing was a matter of contention, you should know, between the Chassidim and the Misnagdim. The Chassidim and those who oppose Misnagdim. According to those who oppose Chassidicism, they had the opinion that, say already 30? Yeah. They had the opinion that as soon as you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah, you do a mitzvah. It's called Zrizim Magdim in the mitzvahs. You do the mitzvah right away. According to Chassidim, if you push off the fulfillment of the mitzvah, not because you're lazy, you're watching Wheel of Fortune, because you're preparing for the mitzvah, that's part of doing the mitzvah. That's not being lazy. That's part of the mitzvah. So if you daven, you wake up at 7, instead of davening 7:30, you daven at 8 because you learned for a half hour. You didn't push off that prayer for a half hour. You invested an extra half hour into prayer. So in fact, there was a guy. You see in text 14a, this question and answer is from 14a and 14b. There was a guy who was a moel, and this moel, I mean, doing a circumcision is a very big event. You're bringing a child into the covenant between God and the Jewish people. So you wouldn't do the bris right away in the morning. He would go to the mikveh. He would learn Kabbalah. He was the whole thing. People would say, "What are you talking about? Everybody knows you got to do it right away." And people started speaking bad about him, that this guy is a lazy bum. So he wrote a letter to the Shimon Sofer. Shimon Sofer is you ever heard of the Chassam Sefer, and he wrote over there he asks in that question, is it okay that I delay the bris, not because I woke up late, because I'm getting mentally ready, physically prepared. So you look at text 14b. So he writes back, Shimon Sofer, the rabbi of Pressburg, writes back, I received your letter yesterday at Shabbos, and I've rushed to answer today to answer and remove any anguish from your heart. Yes, it's true. Anyone who delays a mitzvah as to perform it properly is to be praised and is considered the earliest and performing with the utmost alacrity. Zizim makdimin lemitzvahs, do a mitzvah right away, is when you have nothing else to do, make sure you do the mitzvah. But if you are going to invest in appreciation of the mitzvah, I think I told you this story once. This guy came over to me and said, I was by your brother's synagogue and they'd have mincha late. I said, why? Because they were learning. I said, so the learning was, got everyone excited about God. So it's okay to have mincha a little late. I said, no, but Shulchan Aruch says you have to have mitzvah. I understand, but they were learning. But it was going back and forth. And I think it might have been a Friday, it might have been a rush, or maybe I didn't have my coffee. I was in a. Sometimes I get a little edgy and I get a little nippy. I told the guy, I said, you know what your problem is? You have no idea who God is. I said, man, this guy did not like that. He said, are you telling me I don't believe in God? I said, no, you believe in God. You just have no idea who you believe in. He didn't like that. I wasn't trying to be mean, but if you don't learn, who are you praying to? What God are you praying to? What does prayer mean? You have to prepare. This is why we started learning on Shabbos morning before davening. When you learn, and you could appreciate. Now we can understand what Moshe was writing down before. Because here there's going to be this tremendous event of the giving of Torah, Mount Sinai, and God, and this was really the culmination of the communication. Again, there will never be another communication after this. Right? This is the establishment of the connection between God and the Jewish people, between the guide for mankind, for all humanity. This was a big deal. So in order to get ready, Moshe wrote down the Book of the Covenant. So this was a covenant to precede the covenant. A book of covenant about the covenant. It's not extra. It's a step. It's a step in the way. So now, seeing from that point, it's text number 15. The Mechilta says, "No, now you are tied with knotted ropes, bound fast tomorrow. Come and accept my commandments." Now that the Jewish people were fully invested, now you can accept the Torah. So now, how do we infuse emotion and excitement? You prepare. You don't just go. You don't just go about it before you daven. Take a moment to think. But it doesn't have to be something crazy. A minute. Try to choose a topic. There's the book Hayom Yom. You guys, there's a terrific app, Chabad.org daily study, and there's Tanya and Chumash and a bunch of different things. Daily contemplation, thought of the day. Just think about it. And when you do that, your davening is a different davening. Or you give charity before davening, because you stop. This is the whole idea is to get out of the routine, physical thing, and to try to learn how to be spiritual. All right. Oh, where are we? Oh, answer 5 already. Okay. Key points. We're enjoyed to be emotionally invested in mitzvahs. The question is how. So 2 narratives documented in the Torah surrounding the events of Matan Torah. One in last week's portion, Yisro, and one in this week's portion, Mishpatim. The commentaries, like we said, debate if it happened in the order it's given to us, or our parsha really precedes the other one. According to the first opinion, the Jewish people composed a unique Sefer Brit, a unique Book of the Covenant, even before the Torah was given. And this was in order to enhance their emotional investment. Preparing for a mitzvah is a serious process with a legal halachic weight, meaning that if you're preparing for it, then you can postpone the actual fulfillment. Hasidic thought and lifestyle places much emphasis on this part, on the process. So guys would come. So in the real Hasidim, they would come to shul early, and they would daven, and they would learn, and then they would contemplate.
You're talking outside.
And they would contemplate, and they would think, And then they would daven. I remember a chassid who was sitting next to me. I mean, this guy davened, right? And the minyan was davening, and he sits there, and I remember specifically he was saying the blessing before Shema, and he said a couple words, and he stopped, and he hummed a nigun, and he tuned, and he shook. And he could see, so maybe did he finish davening after the appropriate time? Yeah, but his davening started way early. That's a davening. Come in and out in 45 minutes. As they say in Yiddish, feltzich, it's missing. We have to try to invest excitement and emotion in it.
So
I guess my 20 minutes